Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation on the complicated reality of film preservation. Photographs are one of the most valuable visual records of the 20th century, documenting everything from people, their culture, landmarks, and even events of historical significance. Because of this, visual collections play a crucial role in understanding the past. Despite the significance, these images and moments in history are vanishing at a rapid pace. Faced with the dual challenge of preserving film materials while ensuring the content remains accessible, it's evident that with the lifetime of photographic film being finite, a suitable method to better preserve the content of these images is necessary. Traditional analog methods of preservation are effective short-term solutions to mitigate decay, but are insufficient for long-term storage that are structurally unstable or physically deformed. This presentation will examine the preservation challenges surrounding photographic film, initiatives that have been made to address these issues, as well as suggestions for improvement. The primary obstacle when preserving film photos is the chemical instability of historic bases. Basically, it's a medium that self-destructs. Gregory S. Hunter explains that deterioration is unavoidable, stating that film is inherently unstable, meaning its own chemical composition will eventually cause it to break down, even under ideal conditions. Going back to the self-destruction. According to the National Film Preservation Foundation and Hunter, as nitrate film ages, it becomes brittle, emits hazardous gases, and may degrade into a sticky or powdery substance that is unsafe to handle. It is also highly flammable and prone to self-combustion, which poses a particular danger to other items held within the same collection. Following the retirement of nitrate film in the early 1950s, acetate film was introduced shortly after and was marketed as safety film that eliminated the risks associated with nitrate. However, this safety film offered a new set of problems, namely vinegar syndrome, as you can see in this picture. In addition to the description by the National Film Preservation Foundation, Laura Campbell describes the structural collapse as a chemical breakdown in the film's acetate base that releases acetic acid, causing shrinkage, warping, and eventually becoming unusable. Color dye that gives an image its color will inevitably fade over time and become monochrome, most commonly a singular shade of pink, as you can see in this bottom right corner. James M. Riley's Storage Guide for Color Photographic Materials illustrates via graphs and the time out of storage wheel on pages 19 through 23, as you can see right here on the slide, how color dyes are radically sensitive to temperature and humidity, and an increase in heat can reduce the lifespan of colored film substantially. Even when stored properly, the color dye is never stable. Its deterioration is simply slow. Beyond chemical deterioration, the state of film is vulnerable to the environment in which it is stored. The National Film Preservation Guide, as well as Laura Millar, highlight how elements like high temperature and humidity and even air pollutants can amplify this process, accelerating decay and increasing the likelihood of irreversible damage. Poor quality storage with fluctuating temperature and poor relative humidity can cause film to expand and contract, leading to the curling and layer separation or softening, as you can see the effects in this table. In Chapter 8 of Developing and Maintaining Practical Archives, Hunter describes how cold storage is recommended for long-term preservation, yet many archives lack the facility infrastructure to implement it. And as a result, deterioration occurs too quickly for archival intervention. Traditional analog preservation methods mitigate but do not entirely solve these structural and environmental issues. Cold storage is the widely accepted method of preservation. This method slows chemical decay, sometimes dramatically, a success that's demonstrated by Film Archive Austria's specialized nitrate film depot in Luxembourg circa 2010 that's described as Fumiko Tsusunishi in his Preservation and Resignation, a study of survival from 2023. Analog duplication requires the original material to be physically stable and flat. For nitrate or acetate-based films that have warped or shrunk due to advanced deterioration, the method of photochemical duplication like microfilm, without damaging the integrity of the item is impossible. As deterioration progresses and backlogs increase, the limitations of analog materials become even more evident. James A. O'Toole's On the Idea of Permanence adds an essential conceptual layer to this discussion. He argues that archivists once believed that permanence could be physically achieved, that careful conservation and environmental control could preserve original artifacts, quote, almost indefinitely. But over time, archivists realized that physical permanence is an illusion, especially for chemically unstable media like film and photographs. This is especially true. O'Toole urges a shift from trying to preserve the object forever to preserving the information it carries, saying that archivists must refocus their attention on the permanence of the information rather than the documents themselves, unquote. A perspective that aligns with the realities of nitrate and acetate film preservation specifically. This perspective reframes the approach to preservation from freezing the item in time to ensuring the survival of its information and cultural value instead. This conceptual shift justifies why duplication and reformatting are not compromises but essential preservation strategies. For many collections, analog preservation is no longer optimal, at least not at scale. With this in mind, digital preservation has emerged as a useful tool in addressing the limitations of traditional film preservation. Digitization allows archivists to capture the informational content of a film image even when the physical material is too fragile or warped or hazardous to undergo the traditional duplication process. In the 2010 case study by Laura Campbell entitled Digitization as a Preservation Method for Damaged Acetate Negatives, demonstrated how when acetate negatives are warped or shrunken from vinegar syndrome can no longer lie flat, it is beyond the point where optical printing is possible. This is when digitization becomes the only route to preserve not only the original quality of the image, but its content as well. This digitization project enabled archivists at the University of Southern Mississippi to recover images as well as their content from severely damaged negatives that could no longer be photocopied or handled safely. In a similar case study by Christina K. Matasuak and Tamara K. Johnston, a large-scale digitization project done by the American Geographical Society Library from 2010 to 2012 digitized over 69,000 nitrate negatives that were chemically unstable or physically compromised, an initiative that demonstrates how digital reformatting prevents total content loss and ensures continued accessibility even as the masters degrade. It increased also the ability for item description as well. Many film holdings, particularly large negative collections, lack this item level description, and digitization allows archivists to create more detailed metadata, allowing researchers to easily discover information from these items as well. And online access systems further broaden the reach of these materials, allowing them to be used in research. As illustrated with these case studies, digitization serves an important preservation function. This aligns with the principles of passive preservation, which protect original artifacts by minimizing physical interaction that were emphasized by Hunter and Millar, and digitization allows these items to no longer be physically handled on the regular with putting it in this online format. But Susanna Conrad warns that digital preservation introduces a new set of vulnerabilities, such as obsolescence, file corruption, or hardware dependency. Digital materials require ongoing migration and monitoring. Essentially, archivists trade chemical fragility for technological fragility, but in doing so, they preserve what O'Toole sees as the true core of an item, the information. So there's always a pro and there's always a con with these. The challenge of film preservation reshapes archival work in several ways. First, it requires risk-based assessment. Hunter's preservation survey methodology, for example, shows that archives must systematically identify deteriorating film early and prioritize items for stabilization and/or digitization, so making it more strategic rather than reactive process. Secondly, it forces a hybrid analog digital model. Analog stabilization, especially cold storage and proper enclosures as noted by Hunter, remains essential for prolonging the physical life of film. Digital preservation, meanwhile, ensures the longevity of the informational content and enables access without jeopardizing the masters. This hybrid approach acknowledges the strengths and limitations of each medium. Thirdly, it transforms access. Digital copies, as shown in the American Geographical Digitization Project, enable item level description and online availability. Collections that were once inaccessible because of fragility or poor cataloging are suddenly visible. But, as Conrad warns, widening access also increases pressure to maintain reliable digital infrastructures, which can be costly and difficult to keep up with on a company and staff wide scale. And finally, it demands new competencies. Film preservation now involves chemistry, technology, and cultural stewardship simultaneously. O'Toole's critique on permanence forces archivists to ask the question of what matters more, the aging, chemically unstable reel, or the cultural memory embedded within it. The question guides resource allocation and priorities, as well as preservational planning. Across all the sources I examined for this presentation, one truth stands out. Film was never designed to last. Nitrate burns, acetate warps, color fades, and even the best storage conditions only delay the inevitable. Archives inherit thousands of reels and negatives already in an advanced state of decay, forcing a constant process of assessment. At the same time, digital preservation has become an essential tool. It rescues content when physical duplication fails and expands access as well, but it introduces its own fragility. Archives must stabilize what they can and digitize strategically. If no medium is truly permanent, then the role of the archive is not to freeze objects in time, it is to preserve information and cultural memory through whatever technologies allow. The impact on archives is reshaping priorities and the very concept of what it means to preserve the past.